Alright, everyone, Supreme Kami over here, so it is time to go over the number 91 Gunpla Fragments over here. So 40 fragment is able to be obtained, and then how to actually get it, just a little bit quick rundown. So 8 of them are going to be able to get them from the login bonuses, and then the other 32, they are available via the custom made mission. So those are the only two ways of actually getting it. So let's kind of get started to see what are we looking at for this 2 weeks period. So these are going to be the part and then pilot that is applicable for it. And then if I were you guys, honestly, I wouldn't really try to pick any of these units, for example, like the Kasashi or even like the High New Gundam HWS version Ka. Like, they are fairly old. I would definitely have to say, and they're, in terms of the overall stat, they're not packing anything too special. And then if you're talking about alteration, they will need some L badges. So if anyone that is not around the time where they held two separate campaigns where you're able to get 5, one of them was like a Twitter, like a retweeting kind of like a campaign kind of stuff. So if you guys were not around that time, you're not going to be able to get 5 of those L badges exchange tickets. And then the other 5 was like via another, that was like via like a spring campaign. So in total we were able to get 10 of those L badges. So if you guys are not around those time, I would have to say these parts are just not going to be that good, so highly not going to recommend them. So now that kind of leaves us into those 4-star parts, and then some of the 4-star pilots, and then those 3-star pilots. So if I were you guys, honestly, I will definitely go ahead and then just use all my tickets into either going for like a specific, for the parts, like the actual gunpla parts, or you guys are going for like a specific pilot. So honestly, in terms of the pilot, I would just have to say go for the build project if you guys need something better, because they come with a permanent alteration, so you guys can just kind of get them up and running, for example. So build project pilot are usually quote unquote like the better of the bunch. So that's usually what I would go for. So that leaves in terms of the fragment to only the parts, because in terms of actual parts, like you guys can just kind of use the tickets, for example. So let me go over to the blueprint, the event blueprint, and then I'm just gonna go ahead and exchange everything. So that's that's kind of my kind of thing. So I'm pretty sure most people might do this instead, just because in terms of the actual standard part that they're offering, they have what, Depth Sight, Force Impulse, and then Wing Gundam. They do have the alteration, but I'm just not gonna say, oh, they're like quote unquote good in a way, just because some of the portrait are initially they are very bad. So that's why I'm not really gonna be recommending them. But obviously there are some few sprinkle like some good parts here and there. So that's why we'll just kind of quickly go over to see if you guys need those parts or whatnot. So let us hop over to the alteration page and just kind of take a look at what we're doing up here. So before that, let me take a quick look at the Kasashi and just kind of see if there are any good parts. If I recall, I don't think there were any, so that should be under the unicorn series over here. And then scrolling down a little bit over here. So the only caveat of like the only incentive of actually getting the Kasashi is if you guys are trying to get those link attribute for the big scale version of it, that is probably like the only reason why I would actually get it. Other than that, I would just I'll definitely stay away from that. So where is the Kasashi? It's if I recall, it should be somewhere down here. I think. Where is it? Here instead? Huh? Hold up. Oh, this one is actually under the permanent tab. That makes it actually better, because you don't even need the L badge for it. So that okay, that's actually pretty good. So let me take a look. What are we doing up here? So yeah, long shot. So in terms of categorizing what is long shot, this is gonna be fairly hard to determine, because if you are moving simultaneously moving around the map, it's pretty hard to kind of keep that long distance. So that's why this one is just fairly bad. I mean, this one is good, but look at those vortex, Xeon, and then for space, yeah, definitely not big in the cut for sure. What about the leg part? Let's see what are we doing here. Look at those stats, like oof, they're so bad. This one, both those conditions are under long range or long shooter, so that's actually not too bad. But the condition are definitely not going to be anything that a lot of people will be satisfied for, because one of them is the enemy melee power reduced, and then the other one is CXQ boosting, so that part is good. But the first portrait, a reduction, is not really as seemingly as good, so that's why this one is not just not that good. And then in terms of the other two EXQ, they are going to be a funnel type EXQ, which is like, it's cool and all, but other than that, I would not really recommend that. Now lastly, we have a chest, a mega particle cannon, and eye view. This one's same thing again, it's just not really that good. It's a pretty cool gimmick, I guess. It's just like basically shooting out like a mega particle cannon and all that, but and then also raising your beam resistance up by 59%, but other than that, it's not that good. So definitely a house skill for sure. And then if we take a look at the high new version car, let's see what are we doing here. There should be under the MSV, and then taking a look, it should be all the way down here, right? I think in my opinion, the only redeeming factor is actually, where's it at? The only thing that I consider deemingly as good is actually just the Hyper Beam, the Hyper Mega Rifle. This one to this day, I think portrait wise is still somewhat satisfiable or somewhat like okay-ish. But other than that, in terms of the other part, like this one has the head portrait or head EXQ, which we're not really looking forward to that in terms of a shooting based unit. So this one is definitely a hot skip, yeah, for sure. And then looking over the torso, this one have another EXQ, so definitely not a great option either. Moving over to the arm, in terms of overall portrait, I see some special shot power boosting, which is no, definitely not it for sure. Second portrait is good, but it's a very restricted one, so that's why I'm not going to be recommending for that. And war type wise, come on, ace exclusive and then heavy armor, like oh my gosh, what are we doing? This one over here, hidden arm, so not really something that is like good, I guess. It really depends. In terms of EXQ, there are definitely going to be something that is going to be based on your personal preference and all that. I can say this is like a very bad EXQ, but to some of you guys, like it can be something that you guys like, for example. So that's why EXQ wise, they're definitely going to be up to your own discretion. Moving over to the backpack, we have a funnel type EXQ. So this one, once again, this in terms of funnel type EXQ, they aren't really going to be ever good, just outright in terms of these ones specifically. Some are good, but this one, from testing it in my own self, it's just not really that appealing. So another hot skill. And then moving over to the shield, this one's just going to be like another one of those like shooting out like a beam type attack. So not going to be anything too surprise or anything too special in these. So definitely in terms of EXQ, they are definitely going to be at your own personal opinions, whether or not you like it. But in terms of portrait, the only one that is really good is only going to be the Hyper Mega Rifle. So moving over to some of these standard subs, so let's actually start off with the this side first. So let's see what all, I think both of them were actually under the Wing series, so it should be quite good to just kind of review them fast. So in terms of the portrait for the Wing Gundam, there's actually nothing. Nothing is good from this one over here, so I'm just like, okay, I guess. In terms of overall stat, you guys can say it's kind of okay, because in terms of the alteration for the Wing Gundam, it's not one of the older ones, so stat wise they're definitely, you know, somewhat good. So if you're looking for something in terms of what kind of build you guys are looking at that falls under these tags, you guys can definitely look for them. But other than that, in terms of the EXQ, they aren't really the best. Like, you're not gonna really use, you know, self-destruction, right? You know, this one is simply gonna be for like maybe for fun, I guess, because you are gonna be taking 90 damage. So I'm just like, probably not the case over here. Armor wise over here, I believe the portrait is yeah, you have enemy power or melee power reduced by 30%, and then a shooting crit rate up by 40%. So you know, this combination is just outright bad. So moving over to the leg, what are we doing for the leg part over here? Same thing again, you have a long shot attack up by 20%, but in terms of judging what is like a long distance shooting attack, this one is just not really that good. You have to maintain that long distance, which is like, not the best case scenario, so that's why we are gonna skip that. Secondary portrait, you are getting an EXQ power boosting, but this one is restricted to only the ranged weapons, so that is only going to be this one or just anything that is within the rifle category or just the ranged weapon category, so not a good one either. So moving over to the backpack, let's see what we're doing. Oh, I think we went, oh yeah. So this one's going to be the same thing again, but in terms of condition, it's a little bit worse. So you have to be below 70% health, which is like, why are we doing that? Secondary portrait is going to be another restricted one as well, only to your what is it, torso category, so that's why not a good one again. Just man, like they're just not that good at all. In terms of the beam rifle or the beam saber, yeah, this one just not good either, so we can just skip that. This one we do have a fairly good EXQ, I would have to say, the max up with Buster Rifle, so if anyone is interested into that, this one could be a fairly good one. So you're doing an A plus piercing and then B plus power, so it should definitely hit some pretty hard for sure. So in terms of the shield wise over here, we do have kind of like a throw shield, so it's not that bad. Also does have a melee raise up by 19%, so that is definitely fairly good as well. Stat wise on the shield is not too terrible. Definitely has some pretty good offensive stat. Defensive stat wise, they're not that good. In terms of for shield base, you know, just for shield specifically, they usually have some pretty good, you know, defensive stat, but in terms of this one, it's not really there. So yeah, so this one definitely going to be at your own discretion whether or not you want to get this one or not. So alright, moving over to the death side, so let's see what the death side have in store for us over here. So head wise over here, definitely not going to be recommending it already, so because we just have like a Vulcan, so no. Torso wise over here, so after alteration we should be okay. So this one is going to be a magazine type, so obviously with the proper alteration you should expect a better output, so that's why this one is no surprise. So prior to alteration we should be looking at D power. Yeah, so if you guys are planning or you guys like this EXE whatsoever, definitely something that needs an alteration. So but I would definitely not recommend getting it, you know, just simply for that. Unless you guys pull it, just happen to pull it, I wouldn't really waste my resources into actually picking up this part, for example. But if you guys just basically, if you guys like any of these parts and you guys don't have it in exchange for it, but if you're talking about some sort of like a meta, something that can be good, I don't think any of these would be that exceptionally good, for example, just because they came out on a very old time slot. So this one, mid shot attack up, man, this one is another one of those like just not that good, because this one is supposedly like a melee type unit, but they're packing a mid shot attack up, so yeah, definitely not good. Secondary portrait, it can be good, but I would say the first portrait definitely does ruin it already. And then in terms of the actual war tag wise, yeah, it's not gonna be too easy to build around that, so that's why it could be a skip, you know, honestly, just because this one is like kind of like a mixed bag right there, so unfortunate again, once again right there. Moving over to the back part over here, so let's see what did we kind of, oh, we haven't gone over the leg yet. Let's see. So leg wise over here, it's good. First portrait, you have one of those EXQ cooldown reduced by 20%, but man, that second portrait having a melee crit up, we're definitely not doing that. So another skip in the parts over here. So this one is going to be a hyper jammer, so this one is going to be raising your shot attack. Yeah, that sounds cool, right? Raising melee attack on a melee suit, yeah, that sounds good, right? Yeah, so that's why it's going to be another skip. And then moving over to the beam scythe over here, so we have a deadly circle here. This one's definitely needs an alteration, because if I recall, we should be looking at the power prior to alteration, so that's why this one definitely needs one. But other than that, if you guys do not have it, I will not say, once again, don't just try to go for this one over here, just because of what we're doing here is not that really good, unless you guys are like, oh my gosh, I need this EX skill, for example. But other than that, this one could be another hot skill for sure. Looking at the shield now, last one at least, this one we have a buster shield, so this one's gonna, I believe this one should be another one of those throw type EX skills. So I mean, like, we do have a lot of throw type EX skill, so this one's just gonna be another one to the mixture, so it's not that bad honestly. But I believe about the alteration, we should, oh, I do have it alterated already, so I can't really see what is it prior to alteration. So definitely I will, you know, have to say, leave that to your own discretion whether or not you want to get it or even alter it, because the EX wise, it's just hard to recommend like, oh, is it like a good EXQ, just because every build is kind of built differently. So I would say it's good depending on what kind of build I'm using, but to you guys it may not be that good, so it just really depends on all that. So last but not least, the last unit we need to go over is going to be the Force Impulse. So let's see what we have. I believe the Force Impulse does have some pretty good, semi good. So I think the first one in terms of portrait that I think is good is definitely going to be the beam saber here, because you do have a initial EXQ charge boost by 20%, so that's actually pretty good. And then with P attribute, EXQ power boosted by 35%, so this one is definitely a fairly good option for your P attribute, so not bad for sure. And then in terms of the beam rifle, so we have a double reduction here. So first one is going to be a shooting power reduced by 30%, and then the second one is going to be an EXQ or just an enemy EXQ power reduced by 30%. So for anyone that is trying to build like a, just a all power reduction type build to your enemy, this is definitely something you might want to considering, because this one is a very powerful in terms of portrait wise, so definitely not bad for sure. In terms of the other EXQ or the portrait whatsoever, EXQ wise over here in terms of Vulcan, so this one is you're looking only at C power, so yeah, definitely not recommending that. It's just not gonna hit that hard for sure. So moving over to the leg, we have a rapid thruster. So this one, in terms of this EXQ, I do have a high tendency of actually missing it or actually get cancelled by your enemy, so that's why it's cool and all, but definitely not something I would recommend outright like that. So alright, moving last but not least to the Excalibur. So this one, I guess the main flaw for this EXQ is actually boosting beam resistance to your squad instead of like an actual melee attack up. I guess it's pretty much how they handle it in terms of the effects back in the day, so that's why this one never made it into like the, I guess, the melee power boosting aspect of it. But other than that, this one right here, I wouldn't really recommend it, just because you're not really drawing out like any attack boosting, which is kind of sucks, especially for a custom EXQ. So yeah, in terms of the other portrait, like head wise over here, what are we doing? Yeah, this one is just not too good, honestly. So last but not least, we do have the Armoire over here. So Armoire over here, we have a strong melee crit up by 30%, which is like kind of bad already. And secondary portrait, when you have mid-range active, you get an enemy cut by 35%. So this one is basically if your enemy has one of those, so let's say enemy EXQ reduced by 30% for example. So this one basically strips their 30% off, and then you just kind of have like a quote-unquote like a normal power boosting in a way. So this one is good in terms of its usability. It's definitely one of the more kind of like a modernized, like a step up from our traditional portrait. But other than that, the first portrait does kind of ruin it for me already, so that's why I'm not really gonna recommend it. But with that being said, that is pretty much it in terms of all the parts that is within the number 91 Gunpla Fragment. I feel like this badge is just overly not that positive. I just feel like those parts are just not really that good. But you guys can definitely let me know if you guys are planning to get any of those parts, or you guys are just simply gonna use all those tickets and then or those fragments and then exchange them for just either those 4-star pick tickets for the parts and then for the palette. So with that being said, that is going to be pretty much it, and then I'll catch you guys on the next one.